Welcome to the Big Play Cleveland Show. I'm Gabriella Cruz alongside Chris McNeil and Nick Padone. We've got a lot to chat about on the show today. The most pressing seeming to be the Myles Garrett trade request. We do want to talk about how hot the Cavs have been. We've got 3 starters now. Evan Mobley, shout out to him for his first time. And we'll get into a little bit of Ohio State and the fact that, guys, spring training is coming up.
It's close.
It's here. All the dog days of like being in the doom and gloom are going to be over soon. So plenty to dig into. How are we feeling on this Monday?
Yeah, I was down there by the stadium last night going to the Cavs game, and I saw there were 60 some odd days until opening day there at the stadium. So I'm excited. You know, it's a warm day today. I know you start to get to this time of the year leading up to the Super Bowl, Nick, and things start to warm up. You start thinking about spring. We got the Waste Management Open, which I'm a huge fan of as a golf fan too. So things are rolling. The season progresses. You got the Cavs kind of rolling through into All-Star break. So it's a fun time of the year. And then this Myles Garrett story drops this week, which is unbelievable. You know, the guy that we thought was going to be the rock of this franchise and has been, all of a sudden requesting a trade, a lot to react to.
Yeah, and it's just a reminder that there are no off days in Berea. You know, so many people think the Super Bowl is finally here. You know, you get the Super Bowl on Sunday, and then you got a couple of quiet months in the football calendar before free agency and the draft picks up. There is always news about the Cleveland Browns, whether it's Christmas Day, whether it's the middle of summer. There's always something to break down, and you're exactly right. You know, we should be getting ready for baseball. We should be celebrating our Cavaliers. But, yeah, Myles Garrett drops the news publicly that he has formally requested a trade from our Cleveland Browns, and I'm sure we'll break it down in gruesome detail on today's episode of Big Play Cleveland.
I know we chatted a little bit pre-show about it, but just because someone's requesting the trade doesn't mean it's going to be honored. We're already kind of speculating based on digging and responses that, you know, maybe the organization's going to dig their heels in and decline it, much like as we were chatting pre-show, the Njoku trade request got declined. So we'll see what happens and chat a little bit more about what's going to transpire with the Browns, but also some positive news with our Cavs and Guardians coming up after this on Big Play Cleveland. Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. It's time for our featured headlines brought to you by Fairway Ford.
Cleveland headlines are brought to you by Fairway Ford. Fairway Ford is the biggest Ford truck dealership in Ohio. They have the largest selection of Ford F-150s and Super Duty trucks, and they won't be beat on price by any other Ford dealers. Don't let a short drive to Canfield prevent you from literally saving thousands on your new truck. Fairway Ford, the largest inventory of new Ford trucks, the lowest pricing, and the same hometown level of service. Visit fairwayford.com. That's fairwayfordohio.com.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Browns right off the go here because this Myles stuff is unnerving and everybody's adrenaline's a little up. Do you think that there's a benefit to a player coming out and requesting this trade publicly? Is it always end up public? That's kind of my question. Does it always end up public?
What's interesting about this particular case is Myles Garrett, shortly after the season, there were some rumblings, right, that he wasn't happy. And then allegedly he met with some Browns brass. And whatever happened in that meeting, everybody assumed that Myles Garrett was back on board, that the Browns were going to continue on. And then all of a sudden, here on Monday, he drops this letter where he says, basically, he loves the organization, he loves being in Cleveland, but that he wants to really chase a championship, and he feels that getting out of Cleveland is his best route to do that. And as a fan, Nick, it's really hard. I'm split. I'll tell you what, we've seen this organization over the years, and we've seen they haven't been able to put him in a position where he can win a Super Bowl, even consistently get to the playoffs. So if I'm Myles Garrett, I'm thinking the same thing. And right now, you're at an organization, once again, at a crossroads. This is what happened when you don't have a good answer at quarterback. It permeates the whole organization. I don't care if you're keeping Kevin Stefanski, if you've got stability in the front office, if you're making bad decisions, and those bad decisions manifest themselves at the quarterback position, number one, and then all over the field after that. Eventually, you've got veterans like Myles Garrett going, okay, I've tried it. It hasn't worked. It's time to try it somewhere else.
Yeah, Yeah, and Myles Garrett has worn the Browns uniform for 8 seasons, and I don't need to take people back to the painful times where they acquired him fresh off the heels of 1-15, and then his rookie year where he's hurt half the year and end up going 0-16.
0-16. He went through 0-16. He was there with us in the trenches.
So, 8 seasons in a Browns uniform, and what's he really have to show for it? One playoff appearance with Baker Mayfield where they were able to go to the divisional round of the postseason. We're kind of knocking on the doorstep of an AFC championship game. Ultimately, weren't able to get past the Kansas City Chiefs. And then a magic carpet ride with Joe Flacco in the postseason 2 years ago. Other than that, though, what have the Browns really given Myles Garrett, and vice versa? What has he really been able to say outside of the Defensive Player of the Years, outside of the All-Pros and the Pro Bowls? What has he truly accomplished in a Browns uniform? And he keeps going back to, he wants to win Super Bowls, he wants to win championships, and he just went ahead and told the whole world right now that whatever meetings transpired after the season, he doesn't believe that he's in a position in Cleveland to compete for a Super Bowl, to compete for championships in short order. So it's unnerving. I like that word, Gab. It's just disappointing. When you see the best player that the organization has had since 1999, of course, it's an unsettling feeling to see that guy say, you know what? I've had enough. And he loves this city. He loves this community. He's a minority owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like, the city of Cleveland does mean a lot to Myles Garrett, but there's no doubt in my mind that he felt pretty strongly and has kind of dug into his conviction if he felt the need to go public with all of this.
And to Chris's point, there were rumblings and him insinuating in post-game press conferences that he doesn't really want to stick around for the rebuild. Do you think potentially this letter that he penned was maybe in the works during the season?
Absolutely. I don't think it's changed much. I think whatever that meeting was with the Browns didn't go as well as maybe the media and maybe the Browns had thought. I think Myles Garrett, eventually he wanted to get some personal accomplishments, I think, off of his list, right? And he's done that with the Defensive Player of the Year. He's obviously a premier pass rusher in this league. And now he's looking at, hey, what's my legacy going to be in the NFL? And he wants that Super Bowl. And, there's that part of me. If you're in your career and you're doing all you can with the organization and the organization isn't getting you to the spot where you want to be, what do? You put your resume out there. You go to a different organization. And I think that's where he's at. He's hit those personal accomplishments. Now he's trying to get the team accomplishments. Under Jim Schwartz, he's had some good runs at defensive coordinator. We've had a premier defense here. Yeah. He's very frustrated, I believe, with the other side of the ball right now, and the fact that not everybody is carrying water right now for the Cleveland Browns, and he's had to be the guy.
I had a source reach out to me Saturday, actually, and they said after talking with Myles Garrett at an event, this weekend at the Pro Bowl, which is supposed to be a big celebration, they didn't get the vibe that he was necessarily excited about the Browns next year. They actually used the word detached.
He's one of us. He really does understand
when he was asked about the Cleveland Browns. So it's definitely been on his mind for some time that his end in Cleveland could be sooner than we thought. Now you look at what the Browns are doing, and they're kind of digging their heels in. They're saying, no, we're not going to trade a generational talent of Myles Garrett. And they had, anticipated his path being from Cleveland to Canton as a first ballot Hall of Famer. So now this has all gone public. It's all going to play out very publicly, as these things tend to do. So we'll be buckled in here, and we're along for the ride.
I guess you can't help but chuckle about the timing of it. Like, we're coming off this Cavs high. Like, we couldn't be higher right now. And the fact that the weather's starting to break and we got baseball, and then it's just like, we'll put a stop to that. Other Browns news, though, is that, we got a quarterback coach, the promotion of Bill Musgrave from senior offensive assistant, and he's been an offensive coordinator for 6 different teams. Do you think that this gives any clues to who the Browns quarterback will be next season?
Well, the story's out there. Of course, Deion Sanders was on the teams with him when he was a backup quarterback and really very supportive of it. So there's a lot of people on Twitter who are going back, pulling the old tape about that and trying to establish that connection. Listen, there is a lot of smoke out there, and there's going to continue to be smoke about everything that the Browns do. And the Browns are going to continue to keep that smoke coming because they want leverage. So no matter who their guy is, they're going to say everybody is their guy. And then eventually when we get to that 2, then they're either going to trade or they're going to make that pick, but they're going to make sure that they've maximized the leverage so that if there is a pick on the table, they get the most for it.
I think there is something to be said. Traditionally, Kevin Stefanski hasn't had a quarterback coach specifically on his staff in the last couple of years. It's usually been the offensive coordinator as kind of a dual role quarterback coach, especially since that guy's not calling the plays as Kevin Stefanski is the quarterback, whisperer, if you will. But I thought it was interesting that they named Bill Musgrave the offensive coordinator the same week of the Shrine Bowl. I'm buying into it a smidge. Okay. I think if anything, this gets the Deion Sanders signature. This gets the autograph that says, hey, Cleveland Browns, you've got plenty of options at number 2 overall. And maybe now they have to look into the Abdul Carter option a little bit more now that they could be looking for a pass rusher. But I think the Bill Musgrave hire maybe gets Deion Sanders to say, you know what, I could be on board with this organization because they're hiring my guy. They're hiring a guy that I have a personal relationship with. We played together in my career, and now could be the quarterback coach for my son. So I put a little bit of stock, just that maybe this was the blessing of this is now the Browns are able to look down that avenue a little bit more.
All right.
Fair?
Yeah.
Fair. You always love the conspiracy theories here, so I'll just roll with you, Nick, on these because I'm enjoying the ride. And we're going to have a long off season, and it's a long way still till the draft, so I'll just ride with all of your different theories.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. Ohio State, according to ESPN, Chip Kelly is leaving the Buckeyes after one season to become the offensive coordinator for Pete Carroll with the Las Vegas Raiders. What do you think about these OSU moves?
Yeah, you kind of have Ryan Day right now looking around the room, and he's losing a lot of coordinators. He's kind of left there all by himself, a la Will Smith. But that's what happens, right? You look at Nick Saban and what he did in his run at Alabama. I think he had something like 7 offensive coordinators and like 5 defensive coordinators over that tenure. So that's what's going to happen. Success brings this type of an action, just like we were talking about with Myles Garrett. Hey, once you think that you've hit your potential for an organization, it's time to move somewhere else. And with Ryan Day being the head coach, no one's going to be joining there. No one's going to be promoted to head coach, So they have to look somewhere else. So this is a natural. It'll be interesting to see who they target next. I pulled up on Buckeyes Wire. I'll give them credit on this one. They pulled up the list of some of the prospective candidates for the position. They had Kevin Wilson, former Tulsa head coach, Buckeyes offensive coordinator. Brian Hartline was on the list.
I mean, that's the no-brainer.
I don't see
everything we
Hartline,
hear about
though.
the Buckeyes is that Brian Hartline is this mastermind recruiter, and he gets all these dudes to come to Columbus. Jeremiah Smith, every NFL receiver you've ever heard of. Why not just make him the offensive coordinator? Like, this is pretty
They're very
easy.
nervous, Nick, right now to give him play calling. So if you're going to do that, then Ryan Day is going to be the play caller on this team, from what I hear reading the tea leaves right now.
You're going to give some fired Tulane coach the job? Like,
How about this one on the list? Pat Shurmur, Colorado offensive coordinator. We have a little bit of history of Pat Shurmur there in Cleveland. Do you think he could work down in Columbus?
I don't know. Who wrote that? Buckeye Wire?
Buckeye Wire. Also got Joe Moorhead on there, Akron head coach. He was the offensive coordinator famously of Oregon there for a while.
Have been so good these last couple of years.
Yeah. So there you go. There's some of your candidates, though, Nick.
Yeah, I would just promote Hartline.
You like Hartline right now, huh?
I think we got to take a quick break. We'll be back.
Let's take a break before Nick's heading.
Yeah, with more Cleveland headlines. Talking Cavs. Don't go anywhere. More Big Play Cleveland show right after this.
Welcome back to Big Play Cleveland. It's time for our Garage Beer featured interview. And in studio, we've got a friend of show, Spencer Davies, NBA reporter. And before we get into the Cavs and the big blowout versus the Mavericks, we also have to talk about this big trade and what is Dallas doing, especially since you've been covering it. Just give us your quick Cliff Notes here.
Well, it's pretty much the craziest thing that I've ever been a part of. Having to cover like 2 different things in one game was really interesting, and having the entire world's eyes on Cleveland was pretty crazy too, because that was the first we heard from GM Nico Harrison and Jason Kidd at the actual game. I just thought that the trade itself was one of the most short-sighted deals that maybe we've ever seen in the NBA, just looking at the window that Nico Harrison talked about was going to be 3 to 4 years rather than looking at long-term kind of, of an organization. And you have Luka Doncic going to the Lakers, where they've basically ensured themselves that after LeBron, they're fine. They've got somebody to build around. Maybe right now, and the chemistry that the Lakers had been building, and they were coming off of a big win at Madison Square Garden. That's why it was so interesting, because they had been really getting into a groove with Anthony Davis and Max Christie, and they go out and they get Luka Doncic and a couple other role players, Maxi Kleber and Markieff Morris, to add to that locker room, but they have no rim protection now. So it was an interesting thing, because that was a long-term and short-term move that they made, but they're still lacking in Los Angeles. But from the Mavericks perspective, I just can't believe they only got 1 draft pick. That is just nuts to me, that after seeing what Mikal Bridges went for in the trade, and even if you go back a few years and Rudy Gobert going for 5 or 6 draft picks, that Nico Harrison could only muster 1, didn't even get the 2031 first rounder from LA, and then also just adds Max Christie into the deal, who is a good defender and has been doing a good job as the starting 2 guard for LA. I just still don't think that's nearly enough for someone like Luka Doncic. This is like if the Cavs were to trade LeBron in 2007, if you want to really look at how it really looks on the outside. But as Nico said, time will tell. But I think that he already heard himself with one of his quotes. He said, 3-4 years from now, that's what I see as the long term. 10 years from now, I might bury myself, and same with J Kidd. So it was really awkward, but also fascinating to be in that room.
So, what actually happened? Because we hear that, the Lakers were the only team, that the Mavericks were just, we hear in these national reports that the Mavericks were just done. They had no intent to even sign him to a Supermax in the first place. We heard some things about his weight, and then I saw the video this morning of him getting off the plane in Los Angeles. I'm like, this doesn't look to me like a guy that's anywhere pushing 300 pounds. What's going on? Why did this actually all fall out in the middle of the night? It just feels like there's something more going on.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like there has to be something more going on, and it's really intriguing because Nico flat out said that he had not talked to any other team but the Lakers. Him and Rob Pelinka are very close. We know that also Nico Harrison was a Nike executive, so he's in tight with a lot of these guys. And this is his first hallmark move that he's made. Maybe other than acquiring Kyrie Irving too. That was also a big deal, obviously. But this one is just the magnitude of it is not lost on him. This is a gamble. Whether he hits the jackpot or rolls snake eyes, I don't know. But certainly looking at the surface level right now, this is a move that you just kind of don't understand. But I am intrigued by seeing Kyrie and Anthony Davis, who Jason Kidd coached in the past with the Lakers, and also Max Christie getting into the rotation with the Mavs. Their thing is that defense wins championships. So, that's certainly somewhere they got better. But when you look at this down the road, you're just going to see they acquired a guy that is an all-NBA, all-defensive player, but he's 31. Kyrie's, 32.
Yeah.
And this is definitely a win now move, but if they don't win now, then they're in a lot of trouble.
How was it for you and just the rest of the media? Because in my experience observations last night, it was crazy. There was barely any seats. People were sleep deprived. Stan Mamico saying he went to bed at 3. His kid woke him up by accident at 8 a.m. because he thought he was supposed to be at his aunt's house. It was just, I'm hearing conversations from media members from all over, and everyone just felt exasperated, it sounded like.
Well, I'll tell you what, Nico Harrison and Rob Pelinka, they were smart about it because they did it after the Royal Rumble. As soon as the Royal Rumble ended, then that's when the news started dropping. When you're in NBA trade deadline season, you just kind of have to always have your phone ready to go because something can always happen at the drop of a hat. We saw yesterday, too. As soon as we got done reporting on the Luka story that the De'Aaron Fox trade happened to the Spurs and, Zach LaVine going to the Kings. So it's a never-ending cycle. This next week and a half, you really got to be on your toes. So, you kind of can't sleep sometimes and always have to have your phone notifications on and whatnot. But, I was up for it. I just was in disbelief Ethan Sands of Cleveland.com texted me. He's like, "Are you guys effing up right now?" And I looked at it. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And then I go to Twitter and I was like, "I thought the Cavs had made a trade or something."
Yeah.
And it ended up being Luka Doncic, and I was like, "Okay, this is clearly a parody account because that's what Twitter is nowadays."
Right.
Everyone tries to get you, but then you see that it's legitimately Shams Charania reporting this stuff, and you're just like, you're in awe. You don't know what to say. You don't know what to do. And just the group chats were going, what the hell are they doing? You know, Luka's going to LA, all these kinds of reactions. And to your point, Nick, about the conditioning part of Luka and the report saying that he was pushing 270. I agree with you. I don't think he's 270 pounds.
Yeah.
That's almost the size of a lineman. So it's a little bit exaggerated in that sense. And if Dallas really thought that the conditioning was a big part of it, you're telling me that you couldn't go out and get a nutritionist, you couldn't go out and find a way to get this guy to really believe in a system where he can, you know, either bulk up or shed some weight or something like that, if that's really what you were worried about. And secondly, even at that bigger weight, he's still a 5-time All-NBA player.
Yeah.
And he was just in the NBA Finals last year, dragging the carcass of your team to that stage. And in the playoffs has shown us to be one of the best players already in NBA history. So, yeah, crazy, crazy stuff.
So, Spencer, I want to get into the Cavs, but before we do, I want to look at this from the Lakers' perspective. LeBron, Luka, can they coexist, do you think? And what does this mean for the future of LeBron, too?
That's a good question, because at this point, all those stupid trade machine ideas that come to your mentions and your notifications, this just gave that ammo.
A lot of credence now to those people. Those crazy guys in their parents' basement.
Yep. Those people have an out now. They're like, it can happen because of this trade. I think that Luka and LeBron could play with each other. But the thing is, like, you have to really find that chemistry. Like, the last time someone won something, I don't even know if this is a Lakers move for a championship this season. This is like for beyond that. This is one of those things where it's going to take time, obviously. I wouldn't even take LeBron being moved off the table at this point because, you know, AD was his guy. He clearly was his guy, and they won a championship at the bubble, and that was, you know, a huge moment for them, even though there was no one there to witness it. But this, I think, with Luka and LeBron, like, you're just getting unbelievable playmaking on both sides. Yeah. I don't know if you can get Luka off the ball. So LeBron may be off the ball. Austin Reeves is going to have a lot more responsibilities, I think, offensively because of this too. Because, like, you get two ball-dominant guys. We've seen that before. You know, Kyrie and Luka, they did it. You know, they did it pretty well too, I would say. You can even look here in Cleveland, like Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell. You look at, you know, you got two guards. Like, they're in the JB era, they were really kind of doing my turn, your turn stuff. I'm interested to see how JJ works this out. Because you can't turn one into a catch shooter. You can't turn one into standing in the corner while someone else does work. Like, maybe LeBron, you know, would like something like that, but that is an interesting dynamic between those two for sure. Again, I think they just have to find some rim protection though, because you might be seeing LeBron at the 5 at this point because they have Jackson Hayes. They have, you know, a couple other guys that you can go to from, like, you know, the G League and the two-way guys, but it's not easy to do. I'm seriously thinking, too, that Rob Pelinka making this move now is kind of like making a statement for himself that he's not going to be shackled by the Clutch Sports, you know, kind of aura. Yeah. And, you know, trading someone from Clutch, doing that with a Clutch client on the team, you know, also is just like Rob's putting his foot down and saying, you know, I have to ensure the long term for this organization past LeBron James and past, you know, all these guys that are here right now because, you know, it can end quickly, and they need a piece to build around, and Luka is clearly someone you can build around. So for them, that makes sense, but in the now, I think it made a little less sense.
Gotcha. Yeah. Now, as we sit first week in February, are the Cavs the best team in the NBA?
Ooh, putting me on the spot.
Putting you right on the spot here. Got a big game this week with the Celtics. Are they the best team in the league?
I think they are. And I don't even think it's just an on-court thing. I think it's a mental maturity thing. Yesterday, Kenny Atkinson was talking about how all the hoopla around the trades and what happened before the game, all that stuff, and they entered that game and they came out on a 27-9 run. They They set records for a quarter, scored 50 points, and then they scored
50-19 in that first quarter. That was amazing.
50-19, and then you get 91 points at halftime. Again, any half, the most in Cavaliers history. And then they go out and make 26 threes. And then Sam Merrill becomes the first Cavs bench player to make 9 threes. So they came out focused, ready. They knew that they had to bury him. They knew they had to step on him. And that's exactly what they did. But that's not the first time they've done it. They've very little times underestimated their competition. They've never played to the level of their competition. They are always on the same wavelength. They always play the right way. They always defend when they're healthy. I know that they had the 3-game losing streak. Bad matchup with the Rockets. The Rockets are a really good team. They won a lot of games that week, and they went through a gauntlet and beat a lot of good teams. So I don't think that really was too bad of a blip for them. They were also missing a lot of guys, and Evan Mobley and Karis LeVert during that stretch, and then they lost Dean Wade, and they're still down. They're still down.
Yeah.
Karis LeVert just came back last night, but I just think from a mental standpoint, they're at exactly where they need to be, and they're also understanding of the goal, and they're connected in the locker room, and it translates on the court. I can go X's and O's with you all day on them, but that part I think is the most important to what they do.
Kenny will attribute that to Kobe. We heard him in the press conferences saying, credit to Kobe for putting all these pieces together. But really, how much do you think it's Kenny?
I think the continuity is definitely helping because they know their spots. They know where each other's going to be. They cover for each other on defense. Kenny has instilled some new stuff in it. And I kind of refer to him as the mad scientist in the lab, just kind of mixing the potions up because he's found ways to accentuate strengths that these guys have. And he's found a way to make Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell work together even more so than they had a couple years ago before Darius went through that terrible stretch during the winter where off-the-court stuff was happening. I think Darius Garland, is where it starts. And then Evan Mobley, too. You cannot say enough about his development offensively. All 3 levels, whether he's putting it on the floor. I can't believe that NBA teams don't see that he loves to go left. They continue to let him go left, and he's just attacking with such force. You saw he hit a couple threes yesterday. It's the first time he's hit a couple threes since coming back from the calf injury. Before that, he was shooting almost 40% from deep, so that's another thing. He's legitimately rebounding and running the floor almost like a Giannis Antetokounmpo. He is so important to this. So I think the development of Darius and Evan has been the most important part of this. And then Donovan Mitchell, too, taking a step to the side, not taking a step back, but taking a step to the side, allowing these guys to work and to develop the way that they have into the stars that they are. First All-Star for Evan Mobley, second for Darius Garland. It's his first since a few years ago. But allowing them and fostering their growth and empowering them to do what they do, I think is really important and an underrated element of this as well, because a lot of people look at the counting stats and Donovan hasn't had as good of a year that he's had in the past. His shot profile is different too, though. He's taking a lot more pull-up threes. Yeah. He's getting to the corners just like everybody else, and he's just kind of taken a step to the side to let those guys do what they do. And, we could go down the list on this team about how important everyone has been. And I think a lot of people want to be divisive and try to single people out with, trade deadline and stuff coming up. But that locker room would be devastated if any kind of move was made because they are so together and they legitimately love each other. And you can pick out a moment for each of them. And it's easy to see why they've been so successful and so connected.
Spencer, appreciate you popping in here, man. Obviously a great Cavs chat. We're going to have to keep doing it, by the way, because our Cavs are here to stay. This is going to be a fun spring. Obviously, playoff basketball is going to be close. That playoff time always sneaks up. Go ahead, plug your stuff. Where can everybody read your stuff, your coverage of the Cavs, of the league? Go for it, brother. Floor is yours.
I think that we're going to overrun on time here because I have a book. No, for real. Legitimately. So on Cleveland Cavaliers on SI, that is where I do my Cavs stuff, obviously. We also have a podcast, Courtside with Cavs on SI. So be sure to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you listen to your podcast. We're also on YouTube, where I do most of my stuff, shooting post-game interviews and also doing our post-game chats with Spencer German and Anthony Meglin. So make sure to subscribe to our channel there at Cleveland Cavaliers on SI. Written content at si.com/NBA/Cavaliers. RG.org is where I do my NBA coverage. That's where you would find my Luka story and a lot of my other exclusives that I've done this year. RG.org. Babcock Hoops is where I do my NBA coverage for the draft, which is where I did my latest story with Alex Tui, who's supposed to be a legitimate first-round pick next year. Asa Newell, who was also having an amazing year with the Georgia Bulldogs. BabcockHoops.com. That's pretty much where you can find most of my stuff. So if you've got an hour of your day, you can go over there. And I also have my portfolio that I can post anytime you guys want to check it out. But yeah, been freelancing and been doing this stuff in the league and also in basketball in general for over a decade now. Pretty hard to believe.
Keep up the great work, man. I remember when we were shooting back in 2016 doing
those
stuff
were some
outside.
those were some bad looking shots
It's
too.
so
I'm not
funny.
gonna lie.
Just real like stripped down, like no light, just
Oh yeah,
riffing.
right outside of Quicken Loans Arena at the time,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the backdrop of the final stuff. We had our little camera.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, those were some good days.
It's great to see just all the evolution and that you're still covering. So thanks for coming in and giving us all your insight. Be sure to check him out. Spencer Davies, thanks so much for coming in studio. We'll be back with more Big Play Cleveland right after this.
Welcome on back into the Big Play Cleveland Show, our fill in the blank segment on the program, brought to you guys this week and every week by our good friends over at Northeast Factory Direct. All winter, we've been telling you, you've had nothing but time. You're sitting around, you're hunkered down. Spring is about to be sprung. I don't care what that stupid groundhog just said. Spring's right around the corner. You're going to want to entertain people all spring, all summer. You know how this works. It's Northeast Ohio. We only get a few nice months. You got to go to Northeast Factory Direct now. Visit them now in February so you could get your entire outside patio set like I did for this summer months. You could also get all sorts of kitchen repairs, appliances, cabinets, hardware, countertops, flooring. They've truly got it all over at Northeast Factory Direct. When you shop in store, make sure to ask for that extra special Big Play bonus. They're going to give you a hookup at the end of your purchase. Huge thanks to our friends over at Northeast Factory Direct.
All right, let's get into our fill in the blank. One move the Cavs need to make is
staying healthy. I like the rotation really as is. I know that they've talked about some players that might be on the buyout market, the Ben Simmons of the world, the Lonzo Balls, but ultimately I think the key for this team is going to be staying healthy into the playoffs. We've seen in the past, Nick, what happens when you lose one or two key players come playoffs, and I really like the team as it's established right now and really wishing for good health going into these last couple of months of the season.
Yeah, and I like it as well, because this team is gelling so well. We just had the massive NBA blockbuster, and it was nice to, be able to look in your own backyard and be like, while the NBA news is kind of what makes the league so fun, I'm kind of glad that it's not the Cavs. I'm kind of glad that we got this group that we've got, and that we don't need to make anything too splashy. Now, I would like to see if they could do something smaller or calculated on the buyout market. A name that was just waived was Mo Bamba in the craziness that was the NBA weekend. I think Mo Bamba could be a fun five off the bench for the Cavs. But outside of that, I got my paws off this team.
All right, the Cavs are averaging nearly 5 more points per game than any other team in the East. The offense is totally clicking this year. The Cavs offense this season is.
It's the ball not touching the ground.
Yeah.
They move the ball, and it's great to see so many players get involved and then the ball just moving from the right to the left to the middle and back out so quickly. And when they're humming like they were on Sunday, I tell you what, nobody's going to beat them. That looked like an all-star game. It really did on one side. I have not seen a game like that since I don't know, maybe the Washington Generals playing a game. I mean, that was incredible to watch.
Yeah, it was an all-star game when you factor in now that the Cavs have 3 and the Dallas Mavericks had traded theirs away. This offense is working, and you continue to just give credit to Kobe Altman for sticking to his guns with this core 4 thing, where really nobody, locally or nationally, was saying that that's something that could have been plausible with the 2 undersized guards and the 2 bigs. And now we have teams in the NBA actively trying to replicate just that. But the offense is finally working because Kenny Atkinson has this system in place where these guys are truly playing freely. They're playing Cavalier basketball, and it's a lot of fun to watch every single night. So I hope they stick to this. Come playoff time, don't tense up. Don't try to be a team that you're not, because the style of basketball that's working right now, I truly believe could be replicated come later this April and into May.
All right, the Cavs beat the Celtics on Tuesday if
they play their game. I'm at the point now with this Celtics matchup where I don't have the insecurity in the regular season where we have to beat the Celtics and, this is really going to be a measuring stick for this team. We've been down that road. We know we're good enough to compete. We know we're good enough, I believe, to beat every team in the East, and that includes Boston. So go out there, play your game. We'll beat them. And you know what? If we lose, it's February. That's okay. I'm going to be more interested in coming playoff time. Right now, I'm still not talking about litmus tests. I think this team is ready to go.
And not to mention, the great part about where these Cavs are at right now is your matchups against Boston and your matchups against some of these other top teams in the East. I don't want to say don't matter as much, but when you're looking at the standings, a 5.5 game cushion from the 1 seed to the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference is kind of a nice cushion to have. And that's the luxury of where the Cavs are at, because they've been so dominant and they've been so successful so far this year. So I'm not too stressed about Boston. I really think as long as the Cavs continue to grow as a team every single night, like we've seen thus far, they're going to be just all right come playoff time.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with more Big Play Cleveland right after this. Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show as we continue our fill-in-the-blank segment. We were chatting a little bit about the Cavs, and just to piggyback off of what we've been saying, Kenny Atkinson was saying a big part of that, the assists, because the assists were out the window, or really up. Spencer, was it 40 last night against the Mavericks?
40.
Something crazy like that. And one of the interesting things Kenny said was that they're not just like moving the ball and taking tough shots. They're making good shots. They're taking good shots. So I think that's going to be a huge key against the Celtics. We do have to pivot here and get back to Myles Garrett. A little bit of a down note, but Myles Garrett, a blank % chance of winning another Defensive Player of the Year at this year's NFL honors.
Yeah, he already won it for the Sporting News, so they gave it to him. I don't know, a 70-75% chance.
Thursday get a little awkward, Chris, if he goes up there and accepts that award.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you go in the Hall of Fame, which hat are you going to wear? Now, obviously, he's still a Brown right now, but with the trade request, things get really awkward really fast. So I don't know. I've lost a lot of enthusiasm for this particular award right now, Nick.
Yeah, funny how one public trade request could take a lot of the wind out of your sails of winning another Defensive Player of the Year, which obviously would be great for Myles, would be great for the Browns, trying to get some sort of return.
Put him on the resume. More leverage.
Yeah, if that's ultimately what they decide to do, hey, this is now a back-to-back Defensive Player of the Year that you've got to pony up, whether it be, multiple first-round picks and some player or whatever the return could look like. It's weird that this is all going down, the week of the Super Bowl, which if you're, followed the league and you've been a fan of the league for a while, you probably know, like, Super Bowl week down in New Orleans, like, now all of those people where the media just descend from every little crick and crevice from around the world, now they've all got another headline to run with this Myles Garrett trade thing. So there's going to be way more that comes of this all throughout the week, because literally every and any NFL journalist is going to be down at the Super Bowl, and then later this month down at the Combine, where the Browns are going to have a very big presence because they're trying to find out what they're going to do with the number 2 overall pick. So this Myles Garrett trade thing isn't going anywhere anytime soon, regardless of how many times they want to keep saying we're not trading them.
Yeah. dropping Monday morning, the week of the Super Bowl. His PR team has got to be on it because right now, like you said, a lot of people traveling, they're getting there. This is the first story that they're going to be covering before they really get into the meat of the Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you get later on in the week, then you're talking about the game and this gets swept. So I think that was well played by his team. Now the ball's in your court, Cleveland Browns. We'll see what happens.
I mean, not to mention, there are going to be other Browns players there. There are going to be other, nationally, every NFL star under the sun is going to be asked about this week. Like,
is Myles Garrett going to do Radio Row down there?
He has historically. I've seen him down there sauntering around a couple of Super Bowl weeks in my time. So
talking to agents, talking to other GMs. We'll see.
The NBA, the NFL is a crazy. I said the NBA. Like, this feels like we're covering the NBA.
It's kind of like tampering. I mean, because you get into those tampering things, and we see that a lot in the NBA. Now it's going to be him talking to other teams. Who knows?
Speaking of the Super Bowl, guys, your interest level. On a scale of 1 to 10, my interest level in this year's Super Bowl is, people are saying they're going to boycott it. It's rigged.
I know there's a lot of people who are really down on this Super Bowl. I don't feel that. But, of course, I don't go in that high on any Super Bowl. So, it comes in about a 7 or an 8. I'm waiting for my team to eventually get there, and that's going to be a long time to wait. So this is just one of those normal kind of pedestrian Super Bowls for me, Nick.
I hate the rigged stuff. Are we really doing that? Like, it's their third straight Super Bowl. I get people could say that they're tired of it, sure, but to say that it's rigged, like, I'm not going there. I'm excited for this Super Bowl. I like Super Bowl Sunday. I would love to be a part of one day. In fact, as a fan, but I'm looking forward to it just as much as I would, or just as little as I would any other Super Bowl.
We're going to take another break. We'll be back with more Big Play Cleveland right after this. Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. It is time for our Would You Rather that's brought to you by Greater Cleveland Sports Awards. That is, wow, it's already here.
This week.
Guys, we got to I don't even have a dress yet. Okay, want to be the luckiest sports fan in Cleveland? Get your 2025 Cleveland Sports Golden Ticket. Again, this is one lucky fan who's going to win a pair of season tickets to the Browns, Cavs, and Guardians for the 2025-2026 seasons. That's 130 games of touchdowns, slam dunks, and home runs. These tickets are $100. There's still some left. All the proceeds are going to benefit the Greater Cleveland Sports Commission and all that they do to promote our economy and sports in Cleveland. So get those golden tickets today at clevelandsports.org/golden ticket. Okay, would you rather the Browns get the best quarterback available or the quarterback that best fits Stefanski's system?
Are we talking in the draft or are we talking free agency? I don't know. I came into this kind of thinking, hey, it would be nice to get Abdul Carter at 2, and then you pair him with Myles Garrett. Boy, that one's out the window. Now you may be getting Abdul Carter just for him to be
himself.
there. Yeah, for him to be there. And that leaves the quarterback position, a huge question mark. But I think ultimately we want to see a pairing with Stefanski and a quarterback because Stefanski, this is his show it or get out of town year. And we've been saying that for the last few years, make it or break it. But I really believe that this year is a big year for him. And it's a year that's going to be a rebuild too. So I don't know what that's going to mean. With what's going on with Myles right now, it's like, good luck, brother. At least you can get your own quarterback, so I think you get him a quarterback that'll match his system, because everything else is not going to be roses, and he's going to be very far from it.
I mean, it's a good thing he got that extension, because, like, what are we really doing here? I mean, we are in full rebuild mode, right? If they trade Myles Garrett, you're back to where you were in 2017 when you drafted Myles Garrett. You draft Abdul Carter number 2 overall, and you probably have another really bad year because you didn't address the quarterback position. So you waste another year of, Jerry Jeudy. You waste another year of whatever he's even left on this team to try to draft a quarterback next year. And then you're going to play the game again. Is Cooper Manning going to let Arch Manning come to Cleveland? You're going to do the same thing that you're doing right now with Shedeur Sanders and Dion. So it really does seem like a lose-lose scenario right now. I guess I would find a quarterback that fits Stefanski's system so you would at least be able to say, of all this turmoil, we got this guy, that at least fits our coach. You got the coach, got the quarterback. Yeah. Now you're back to building a team around him. So I'm still trying to find a quarterback that works with Stefanski, to answer your question.
The year after we drafted Myles, who went 0-16, right? Draft Abdul Carter. Next year, tank year, can we be the first team to ever go 0-17? Do I need to dust off some of those parade permits for next year? I hate to say it, Nick, but that's where we're going to be at. And if you're thinking otherwise, you're really you're fooling yourself.
How long do we have, Ryan, in this show?
Oh,
thank goodness. It's almost over.
All right, let me ask this question because this one's kind of fun. If you're starting a football team, would you rather have prime Tom Brady and Bill Belichick or prime Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid?
I'm taking Tom Brady and Bill Belichick.
Yeah,
they did it
give me
over
a
years,
culture.
no matter who that cast was around them. Right now, there's still some consistent pieces right now with the Chiefs, so I go with the Patriots all day.
Is that still your answer if they complete the three-peat, the Chiefs?
Yes. Yeah, it is, because they did it over time for a longer length of time. I think Kansas City could certainly get there, and this
do
is
you
not
think that-
taking anything away from Andy Reid or Patrick Mahomes or what they're doing right now. I just think they haven't had enough time to show it yet.
They went a decade and didn't win a Super Bowl and then came back and started winning them like nothing happened. Like Brady and Belichick, it was established success for years and years.
All right. Well, do you think that the Chiefs will get there then one day?
I don't.
I don't either. Andy
And in
Reid's
fact,
already
I think
too
they're
old.
going to lose in this Super Bowl. I've got the Eagles to win.
Wow.
Give
All
me,
right.
that.
give me the Chiefs, but
You've got-
Andy Reid's already. This could be maybe Andy Reid retirement after this. Wouldn't that be a surprise?
How
It
strong
could
is
be
that premonition? I'd like to win some money.
It could be Taylor Swift and getting engaged
Oh, we're not
potentially
doing
too.
it. Thank you guys so much for
All right,
tuning
we'll
in
get
to the
outta
Big
here.
Play Cleveland Show. Download that Big Play app. Watch your favorite shows on demand. We'll see you next week.